Good morning. I'm David. Welcome to week 42 of 52 churches in 52 weeks. If this is your first time here, this is a one-year spiritual challenge as we attend a new church each week. So if you want to join along on these church travels, make sure to like and subscribe. Always appreciate the support. On February 8th, 2023, at Asbury University in Wilmore, Kentucky, a prayer chapel service was supposed to end in the Hughes Auditorium. But a few students felt compelled to stay back and continued to pray and worship. Well, this continued and continued and continued all throughout the night. The second day kept going. Third day still kept going. And as a result, social media finally got a hold of this, and next thing you knew, this thing just blew up and went viral last week. But with this movement, it's something different. It's very grassroots, and I guess being in Kentucky, maybe it's bluegrass roots. And the question is being posed, is this the Holy Spirit? Is this an outpouring for Gen Z right now? So last night was February 18th on a Saturday night. I drove out 8 hours and then got in line, and I thought the line was going to be maybe about 2.5 hours, maybe 3 from what I had heard. No, I was in line for 9 hours. And as you can tell with my face, I got a bit sunburned despite the weather just being 45 degrees. So getting inside, I tell you, I've never seen such a stirring before. I walked out like God is love, God is light, God is life. I can't say enough good things about this visit, and especially with what was going on with this younger generation, with Gen Z. To see what was happening, it's something that I've never experienced before. And I know there's a lot of critics, especially the old guard, that's going to be like, heart of discernment and all that. But actually being there, witnessing this, a lot of takeaways and a lot of insights. So I'll share a little bit what happened inside, and I'll be back in a moment with some takeaways. If you've been following my church visits, you'll know I've had this strange aspect of cardinals appearing during these visits, and I felt like they are something spiritual. And with the Asbury revival, the Asbury Outpouring last night, I really felt the Holy Spirit there. I know some people may disagree. Don't snuff this flame out. And as I'm filming this right now, a cardinal has appeared to me out here. I'm going to try and get some pictures of this, if it stays there. Yep, still there. Yeah. There he is. Hey, buddy. That is so crazy. Oh my goodness. So he flew off now, but this keeps happening with this church journey. I don't know how many more videos I got to do talking about this. Okay. All right, let's get into the video here. So when I got in line, it was 10 a.m. and I started talking with a younger couple, and from Indiana. So they were fantastic to speak with, and the couple in front of us kind of eavesdropped and overheard our conversation. They kind of joined in. So really great conversations. We had been waiting in line for 2 hours, and it's like we had barely moved. And an event organizer came over to kind of let us know about a simulcast that would be starting at 1 p.m. and some of the other churches and chapels that would be assisting that you could go to instead. So it sounded like, from what he said, those that I was speaking with kind of thought, well, waiting in this long line to get into the auditorium seems like a moot point, so they left. And I just kind of was like, I drove this far, I'm going to stick around here. I got to the corner after 3 hours, and the traffic was like, it was like the Field of Dreams movie at the end, where it's like, if you build it, they will come. Like, to this, it was almost like, if you pray it and if you worship it, they will go. This city with Wilmore, from what I heard, they only have a Shell gas station, a Subway, and 2 stoplights. And the rest is just this Christian university. So this place is not built for this type of exposure, this type of journeying. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm going with it for this. For so many people that came. Great thing with the line, and it was just the generosity from people. I think after 3.5 hours, I was kind of like, I can't believe I'm still waiting for this. A woman came over, and her name was Sandra. I remember her name. And I hadn't been speaking with a whole lot of people since my group had left. And Sandra, she was wearing a Billy Graham hat, and man, she just revitalized me, because she came over, asked, where I was from, some other people that were in line with me, and we just all prayed. And Sandra prayed about, with whatever happens with Dave here, I hope that he's Spirit-led and he's Spirit-filled, so that he can spread this experience to others. And I'm like, well, I do a YouTube channel, so I'll spread it through that. And another gentleman came who had just gotten out, and he kind of gave some reassurance to everybody that was waiting in line for so long that, hey, I was in the line, it took forever, but it was well worth it. So that also helped out. And it was very much like the feeding of the 5,000, as close as I have ever come to it, because there were so many people that were so generous. Like, one woman drove over and she threw out these nuts to people. I'm like, well, I don't have enough on me right now for food, so might as well take that. There are other people that came with bread baskets and would hand out Subway. After waiting then for 6 hours, and then 7 hours, and then 8 hours, like, at this point, I'm like, my legs can barely move anymore. And it was so weird, because the saving grace was Chick-fil-A. So Chick-fil-A delivery drivers came up, and they had Salvation Army emergency trucks scattered throughout. When I first saw that, I was like, that's a little excessive, but with these lines, boy, they were a godsend. So you could walk up, and everything was free. So I grabbed a bunch of Chick-fil-A, 4 different sandwiches for those that were in line with me, and just kind of handed those out. The great thing with this, especially with it being so authentic, is there was no money involved. There was no tithing. There was no one trying to sell something. I could easily see someone come up, set up some shop, and be like, Asbury Revival 2023, and they're trying to sell shirts for $5-10. Nothing like that here. Everything was just generous. It was free, just pure. So when we finally crossed the finish line and walked up to the Hughes Auditorium, they had this door, and you could see like the 2 different lines. There was one line for the 18 to 25-year-olds, and then the other for the other ages. And the 18 to 25-year-old line, they had this whiteboard, and just people were just putting in all kinds of information. I'm guessing that they were putting down their names and where they were from. But to see what that looks like, 20, 30, 40 years from now, I'm sure that's going to be a keepsake for sure. So when I got up to the door, there was a woman that would open up and close it. So she was looking for 1, 2, 3, 5. She'd call different people in based off the quantity to keep families together. So it took me a little while to get in just with one. So I got inside, and what happens is all the 18 and 25-year-olds, as of day 10, they all are located on the lower section. and then all the other ages are up on the balcony. And just walking in just to see that the passion that was going on in there was just the biggest thing that I kept thinking of was that Psalm 23:5 passage about the cup overfloweth. Like with God, it's like sometimes, your cup may be too full, sometimes it may be empty. But with this, it's like with God's love, it just kept pouring and overpouring and overpouring and overpouring. That's the sense that I got from this. So maybe revival isn't the correct term for it, but I would call it maybe the Asbury, what I've heard is the outpouring. So I like that definition way, way better. So they played a lot of contemporary type of music, but I think the biggest eye-opener for me was to see how the hurt, the pain that was going on at the altar. So they had the worship area, and they had all the college-age students up there. But right below that was this little like moat for discipleship and mentors, prayer partners, and those were all the elders. Everyone was probably at least 40 years old that were there. And you had so many 18 to 25-year-olds coming up to that altar, getting on their knees, and they were just bawling. And from some of the testimonies that the lead speaker, I don't know if he was a pastor or if he was the president, I'm not sure. It seems like the biggest thing that they were dealing with was porn addiction, anxieties, everything that I feel like our past generations, like I'm a millennial, and it's like, I don't really feel like my generation was able to curb porn addiction or the anxiety issues, especially with social media. So with these kids, with these 18 to 25-year-olds, like we are giving them just all this junk, and they have to deal with it right from the get-go as they're coming into adulthood. So to see that pain, to see that that burden, that cross that they're carrying to that altar, and to have discipleship, to have somebody that is going to be Christ-centered. There was one guy that he was just a complete wreck, and two of the prayer partners had went over this rail to just kind of put their arms around this guy as he just laid it all out. So to see that, and the biggest thing that I thought from this visual was you have these kids coming up to this altar, but there's so much love, there's so much praise, there's so much passion from the student body behind them. It was almost kind of like the students got their back for each other in this church. And that's where the Holy Spirit was really coming in, because to see that with the worship compounded with the confessions, like we, as a generation, millennials, older generation, the old guard, we should be apologizing to these kids. So to see them get up at that altar and be apologizing to Christ was so powerful, so impactful. And I will never forget that. So I worshiped inside for about an hour, and it's an experience that I will not forget, just to see the passion and the hunger for this younger generation. And there was a lady that would come up every once in a while, maybe every 30 minutes or so, who would, before she would mention, if the Holy Spirit has released you, make sure to, go your separate ways so we can have more people come in. As the night progressed and it got later, she was a little bit more forceful about it, where it's like, all right, if you've been here for a longer time, let's make sure we get some more people in here. And it was strange because it was almost kind of like a hockey game, where it's like people were leaving, and it's like you're subbing out so a new line of worshipers can come in and take your seat to get into the game. I've never seen a church service like that before. And when you walked outside, I tell you, there was so much love from people, because it was almost kind of like this, like people getting off an airplane or something, and you haven't seen a relative for years. People were just embracing and hugging each other when they walked out, and just tried to, what did you experience? What was your testimony? So just really, really strong. And I think walking out of this service, my biggest takeaway, I heard a sermon I've been listening to from Calvary Chapel, Skip Hetzig, I can't remember how to pronounce his name, but he often talked in Acts where the disciples and Jesus, Christianity is a youth movement. Like Jesus was 30 to 33 during his ministry. And it's like with the disciples, you often think about the Lord's Supper, these paintings, and it's like the disciples are all old with these gray hairs, the beards, they're all balding in the picture. But it's like the disciples were not that old. Like they were young. They were technically kids themselves. So they had to have a huge hunger themselves. So to see this, like if anyone that's an old guard Christian, like if you're snuffing this light out, don't. Like there is so much darkness in the world, and to see these kids go up to that altar to confess everything, their porn addictions, their anxieties, their abuse, physical, spiritual, emotional, everything, to ask for God's love, to ask for God's grace. That hit. That was powerful. So walking out, to me, like Christianity, like I want to be behind these kids' backs. To see this passion, we're going to need more of this as the world progresses and evolves in a more AI kind of centered type of direction. So yeah, kids, 18 and 25, Gen Z, like I got your back. And I'm hoping that you are able to be a light to shine, tear through the darkness so that you can brighten the world. That's going to wrap up week 42. Hope you enjoyed this week's visit for this outpouring at Asbury University. And also my strange Cardinal appearance again as I film this. Just again, this is nuts to me. For next week, I'm not sure where to go yet. I'm very curious to see, maybe to go to another university, how this impacts other universities, maybe more revivals, not sure. But if you want to stay tuned for these visits, make sure to like and subscribe. Always appreciate the support. But until next time, hope you have a good one.